Hi, I'm Zack Link, CISO at ShardSecure. We're a data security company. With me today is Josh Kanter, CEO and founder of leafplanner, an information collection service for high net worth people. So Josh, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Zach. It's great to be here. I appreciate your time.
Cool. When I first heard about leafplanner, I literally thought, this is so important, and I don't see anyone else providing this type and level of service. So tell me a little about what leafplanner does and why you started it.
Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate the comment that we're the only thing out there that we know of that's really doing, quite exactly what we're doing. I mean, obviously there's things, around the margins of what we're doing, but the idea behind leafplanner really comes from a family story that I'll share with you in a minute. But what it really does is attempt to collect, help families organize, and then really almost mind map, if you will, for the people listening who understand what mind mapping is, right? Of really showing you what the entire family information ecosystem looks like. And for us, it was really important that what we're doing is collecting information, relationships, documents certainly, but most solutions, of course, today are really focused on documents, and we really wanted to focus on something broader than that. And so it was really an attempt to bring together almost document management and relational database concepts and merge them into one. And so what you end up with is this, again, kind of almost map of everything there is to know about a family enterprise, family business, family office, depending upon what the situation is that you're dealing with.
Awesome. So really, what makes leafplanner different, and what problems do you solve for your clients?
So really what makes us different, I'd say, is that kind of that mapping aspect in many ways. And again, combining the idea of information gathering with document gathering and document management. The problems that we're really solving, I'd say we're kind of built on 4 different pillars of sort of pain points, if you will, for different clients. And it's going to vary across our client base. But one is very much around the idea of education, engagement, empowerment of family members. And if you look at the industry, the wealth industry, the trend over the last 25, 30 years, which has been great, is toward more transparency, more education, more preparedness for errors, things like that. And leafplanner is definitely trying to do that. And it does that really in a couple of ways, but primarily because there's actually a tremendous amount of educational material in the platform that's really helping families. So not only are you giving them a platform to share their own information, but you're giving them a platform to learn what information they should be sharing and why they should be sharing it and things like that.
Okay.
The second pillar, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So that second pillar is really around kind of a workflow management piece. And so that could be everything from, how does the insurance policy or the will or the trust get reviewed? How often does it get reviewed? How do you get those reminders to review it? That could be your card title if you want it to be. I mean, in fairness, most people are probably using Outlook tasks for that, but you could certainly be using leafplanner for that. There's a whole demographic model built in. So families that don't even know, for example, I have an 18-year-old or kid who just turned 18. For families that don't know that you need to get a HIPAA release when your children turn 18 or various things, there's a whole demographic model built in. So lots of workflow management piece. That third pillar is really about what we refer to as blind spot identification. And that's really a couple of different things. It's one, an element of things that, it's the traditional, you don't know what you don't know. So there are lots of questions that leafplanner is going to raise for a family that they may not even know they should be thinking about. And then there are other things, so we'll call that a blind spot.
Yeah.
The other kind of blind spot.
In my family a lot, honestly.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because, look, the reality is people who have built more wealth than they ever expected to, which is a vast number of our clients who really are looking at all of a sudden saying, I never expected to have this kind of money. The reality is they created that wealth by, putting their head down and working hard at what they did. And they're an expert at what they did, but that doesn't make them an expert at everything else. And so we're really trying to help families understand what are even those questions that they should be asking. And so again, that's kind of one of our big pillars of blind spots. And then the other one, which is sometimes equally interesting, is things that people knew they should do, but they never did. And that often comes up in the estate planning arena, of course, because people, get this beautiful estate plan that a very sophisticated lawyer puts together and says, go do this, that, or the other, and then nobody does it. And so, all of a sudden leafplanner is helping them remember, oh, we never did that. And that could be retitling a house. That could be, filing crummy letters. It could be all kinds of different things. And then the final pillar is really, to some extent, I'd say the most important, and really is the one that relates to my family's story, but at the same time is, kind of hopefully often everybody's future, which is this idea of succession of information. And it's really the most efficient and comprehensive succession of information in a family wealth environment that we've ever seen. So lots of people have the olden case of emergency file, bus book, red file, lots of different names for it. But this is far more comprehensive and really is, I hate to say it, it's almost like a, do-it-yourself estate tax return. It's not really, but I don't want to, we're not providing legal advice or anything else, but it's a really, really comprehensive succession of information for families.
Okay, great. And did you say you had a personal story that got you into founding this company?
Yeah, so my story is really the kind of original basis of this whole thing. And almost 25 years ago, I basically left my law practice. I was a corporate and securities lawyer, left my law practice to come help my family when we found out that my father was dying of cancer. Sorry. And as he was, thank you, a long time ago, still hurts. As he was dying, I basically, again, I left my practice. I came in to essentially help my family navigate through what that was going to mean. And at that point, my mom was alive. We basically had 3 generations of the family, 3 branches of the family that were all very tied together through investment structures and trust structures and whatever. And my dad had been a world-renowned tax lawyer. So we had a wildly complicated enterprise. We were in a multi-decade fight with the Internal Revenue Service. Like it was a mess. And so I basically had to give up my job, which was a big deal for me because I'm one of those idiots who liked being a lawyer. So I gave up my job as a lawyer and came to help my family navigate through all of this. And I ended up with 18 months with my father. And that was awesome, right? Instead of, he didn't have a heart attack, he didn't get hit by the proverbial bus, right? But I had 18 months every day with him. And when he passed away 18 months later, it was shocking to me how much I realized as I was then going through that process, what I still didn't know. I didn't know why we had 750 entities. I didn't know why, this, that, or the other. I didn't know who the landscaper was at my parents' house, which was tied up in that tax litigation, right? So, just everything from silly stuff that's not silly when you're in the heat of it, to really complicated, sophisticated planning and why was it done and how do you, if I'm going to take 750 entities apart, I better understand why they were put together. And so when I realized I don't have that context, and I could go on and on with stories about the things that I found. I found literally going through my dad's stuff, a safe deposit box receipt that had no bank name and no date. Like to this day, I jokingly say, I don't know if there's $1 million of gold sitting somewhere in a safe deposit box. I guess it wasn't Bitcoin back then. So, but it's really crazy the things that you find and you don't know. And so leafplanner is a 22-year later version of it, but we started building this idea of a family owner's manual for our family that again was going exponentially past the old bus book, red file, whatever, in order to really prepare family members and help family members so they could look up who's the banker. They could look up who are our partners in this deal. You could look up, do I trust this person? So all kinds of really interesting ways of capturing context. Why is this painting behind me important to me or to my father or to my sister or whatever, right? So lots of different ways of capturing that kind of stuff. And that became basically the basis for leafplanner a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And I can think about it like when I pass away, it's not me that's going to be dealing with all this. It's going to be, my wife or my kids or
right.
Whatever. And so there's a lot of stuff, stuck in my head that only I know about.
Right. And that's the thing. And not only is it stuff that's stuck in your head. If you're like any normal family, right? There's actually stuff that's stuck in your wife's head too, that you wouldn't know. Right. And there's stuff that as you obviously climb the wealth scale, where our clientele may have a property manager who deals with 3 properties for the family. And all of a sudden, it's the property manager who has all kinds of information that the matriarch and patriarch don't have, or the executive assistant who all this, or the CFO or whoever it is, right? There's always this part of the problem in the way life has gotten so complicated is information is in all these disparate places. And that could be, Google Sheets and Word documents and Excel files and all that kind of stuff, or it could also be the executive assistant and the property manager and the husband and the wife or the partner or the kids or whatever it is. Like there's just information floating all over the place. And we do tend to, the whole industry has always focused on, sorry, I don't mean to be sexist about it, but like what happens when the patriarch dies, right? But that's not always the worst part of it because that yes, there are relationships and things that will die with that person, but there also are so many other things.
Yeah.
And you just kind of alluded to one thing that I think for us is really important, because there are people who in your life who only you probably know, hey, if that situation happened, I would call that person. But there's no documentation of that. My wife can get into my computer, and if she's staring at 5,000 Outlook contacts, I'm not really convinced I've helped her very much. Right. But if I can delineate who are the 30, 50, 20, whatever it is that are important and why are they important, because she may not know them, that's pretty important, right? That's really valuable.
Yeah, over a whole lifetime, we build these intricate webs of relationships and stuff, so I can see that. So like what type of clients do you have, and what are their similarities and differences?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Our clients are kind of, I'd say, all across the wealth spectrum at the moment. We have families that, they're kind of in the high net worth category of wealth in this country, all the way up to over $1 billion significant family offices. So really across the wealth spectrum. I think really the product applies, people often ask me, what do you need to be worth for leafplanner to apply to you? And my comment is, frankly, really it's about information complexity, really not about wealth. Because my comment to people often is, you could be worth $5 or $10 million and be wildly complicated because you've done some private investing, or you have a business, or you have multiple homes, or you have this, that, or the other. And to some extent, a couple of years ago anyway, right, you could have been worth $1 billion of Bitcoin on a USB drive, and you're not very complex at all. And so maybe no longer. And so, to me, it's really about complexity. But so we don't really necessarily have a prototypical customer. The client base is really all over the place. It could be mom and dad and a couple of kids. It could be a sophisticated family office. It could be, we also work with multifamily offices, registered investment advisors, accounting firms, law firms, trust companies, kind of anyone who's serving that high net worth, ultra high net worth family office world. And so the stories and the use cases are kind of all across the board. Super interesting. We're loving it. We had one client, I'll just tell this one, I'll shut up. We had one client call me the other day, and she said, I bought my husband a $50 coffee card to force us to go to have coffee every Sunday morning and talk about the issues that leafplanner raises. And I was like, that is so great. I love that, like, that was the impetus to make you guys go do this. So
yeah, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, I know for me, keeping my personal data, like I'm in cybersecurity and have been for a long time. So keeping my personal data secure is incredibly important to me. I would imagine for your clients, security is top of mind as well. So at the same time, you do need to share sensitive information with people like family members and advisors or whatever. So how do you balance the security and the access of that data?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is really important. And it's been interesting for me to see the evolution, again, kind of from my perspective in the wealth industry over the last 25 or 30 years. And when I really came into our family situation, of course, a lot of these products and obviously Amazon and Azure and all these things didn't exist 25 years ago, of course. But there was a real hesitancy, not even hesitancy, like almost hatred's the wrong word, but fear certainly of cloud-based computing, right? As that was coming on, family offices, I think, were very, very late in the adoption of cloud-based computing. Everybody wanted things on their local servers. Nobody was willing to trust, cloud-based computing. And obviously that's changed. And now, there's the occasional person who still is of that view, but we've come a long way. But we are, I'd say, collecting, the utmost sensitive information about a family and making it available to family members or whoever they invite into the system. So security is our number one concern. It's quite frankly, of course, the number one question I get when I'm demonstrating what Leaf Planner is all about, because you see that you're getting, essentially a map of the family's information. So for us, it was really important that we choose the right provider from the cloud side, and we very intentionally went and chose AWS. We also wanted to make sure that we had kind of the most cutting edge security issues or security protocols that we could to protect that client data, and so that we could answer that question. So to me, and I'm not a security guy, so you may shake your head and say those aren't the right things to say, but on our front end, we've got obviously above industry standard password protection and two-factor authentication and end-to-end bank level encryption and all. What I keep saying to people is like, okay, that's great, but that's table stakes to be in the business. And what really differentiated us and what we were really excited about was when we found you guys, quite frankly. So, finding ShardSecure and understanding how we could further be at kind of the cutting edge of cybersecurity when it comes to our client data was really, really important. And there is an element of the way we've designed our platform that also lets clients, to some degree, choose their own kind of client journey and security journey, because you don't have to store everything directly into Leaf Planner. You could be telling people where it is in Leaf Planner.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of design your own journey there, but ShardSecure, I got to tell you, is like the most important, other than some of the members on our advisory board who come from that cybersecurity background, as you know. But it's just been a great partnership, and we're so excited to have it as part of our security story and being able to ensure our clients that we're at the cutting edge of cyber right now.
Yeah, it's been great working with you and your team. So I really appreciate that. You did mention trust, right? So trust is obviously really key. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Trust, not as in trust, but as in trust. We spend a lot of time talking about trust. Yeah, I mean, just the trust conversation it's really important that our clients, I mean, we're dealing with, obviously, again, a high net worth, ultra high net worth, family office clientele who are very discerning in who they want to work with. Frankly, I think my reputation and them trusting me as the founder and CEO of this company is incredibly important. I don't think this is like a typical vendor relationship where people pick up the paper or go out searching on the web and find Leaf Planner and say, oh, that's interesting, I'm going to go sign up for that, right? Yeah. It's a very trust-based sale at the moment. Maybe that'll change someday as we get bigger. So my reputational trust is really important, and therefore my being able to sit out there and say, again, from the cybersecurity side, because it is the biggest issue, to be able to say, we are confident that we're at that cutting edge, and that we obviously have a lot of trust in what you guys are doing, and it's a hugely important part of the kind of the chain of trust, if you will, from party to party.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as the CISO here at ShardSecure, ultimately I'm the person that's responsible for our security. But also as a startup, I don't have the luxury of a 30-person 24/7 SOC for our environment, and we obviously have a lot of sensitive data that we have to keep. So I have to pay a lot more attention on my policies, my procedures, and technologies that I have in place. So I imagine that you guys are face similar challenges at Leaf Planner. So, like, as a small company, how do you address those risks?
Yeah, it's for us, I guess, and I think what you just said is really important, because for us, we're such a small company and we're so early that we're steps behind you guys by a lot, and so the ability to again trust and rely on you guys as that protection. We're starting to work on our SOC 2, and we've obviously started to look at GDPR for any European customers that come in. We just brought on our first couple of Canadian clients. There's really nothing about Leaf Planner it was sort of built, a little bit US specific, but it's really the things that it addresses are, quite frankly, international or global.
Sure.
And so we really do think that we'll attract a client base from around around the globe, and we need to be prepared to address those security concerns and security regulations around the globe. And so trusting in you guys and knowing that we can essentially, frankly, just ride your coattails on those parts of the things that address some of the security concerns in a way that we can't build internally yet. And maybe we never have to because we have you. And
Right.
so there really becomes, again, a trust and an interdependency. Maybe it's a one-way interdependency for us. I guess you need customers, but for us, it's definitely an interdependency on knowing what you guys are doing.
Well, one day I hope to be one of your customers too. So
we'd love to have you anytime. You're welcome right now.
So you mentioned SOC 2 and GDPR, obviously big regulations, and more international customer clients, I guess. So do you have plans to expand into the EU? And if so, how do you address the regulatory landscape, GDPR, Schrems 2, that type of thing?
Yeah. So again, I'd say from my perspective, at least, kind of wearing my chief of everything hat at the moment, certainly chief salesperson and CEO, that, again, I've spent the last 30 years, 25 years at least in this kind of family office world and the wealth industry. And one of the things, and especially, it's interesting during COVID, because everybody, of course, moved to Zoom and videos and different things, that I had belonged to over the last 25 years, a variety of family office groups, but COVID actually gave me the opportunity to start participating in far more international groups. And one of the things that really dawned on me in that, I think I implicitly knew it and understood it, but it really crystallized during COVID, was that families of wealth across the globe are dealing with the same issues, right? And what that, there certainly are cultural differences, can't diminish those whatsoever, and they're really important. But the basic, what happens when people die, how do I share information, how do I prepare my kids, how do I not ruin my kids, like those questions are universal.
Right.
And so leafplanner serves to help families answer those, again, pain points or questions. And so I don't see anything. Look, our platform's in English. I have no idea if Google Translate would do a good enough job, or if we need to start hiring people to do these kinds of things. And there are things that are unique even with our Canadian clients today. Employee identification number in the US is called something else in Canada. I don't even know what it's called. So we have little tweaks like that we have to think about. But I do think, without losing our kind of laser focus on building the business, that this is ultimately going to cross borders, and we've already crossed the Canadian border. So, and we've had inquiries from Europe, and we've talked to people in Europe, and we've talked to people in, Australia and New Zealand and a variety of places. So my view is, yes, this is going to be an international opportunity or a global opportunity. And that means we have to comply with those privacy regulations. And again, you're the security expert, I'm not, but it seems like the EU has led the way. And I think you've described to me that California and other states are starting to follow. It may not be exact, but are starting to follow. Some South American countries have started to follow. I imagine Canada can't be far behind. They're always ahead of the United States. So, that us as a country, we will be last to jump on this. But so we want to make sure that we're really addressing those issues. And again, I'd say ShardSecure is an important piece of that for us, because the extent that you can help us maintain data privacy in a way that's compliant with those regulations is really, really important. And I don't even know what the other options are for that, but certainly for us, you guys are the solution for that piece of that security puzzle and privacy puzzle.
Awesome. So you guys are a SaaS platform, right? So you have the ability to iterate and incorporate new services and features pretty quickly. So what types of services or features are you planning on in the future?
Yeah, we have a pretty heavy roadmap, as you can imagine. So we've been live for about 18 months, a little more than 18 months. And so, as I'm sure you know from your guys' story, right, the roadmap is extensive. Uh, Early kind of low hanging fruit, I'd say that I think we're pretty excited about. One is really the ability to sort of interconnect different leaf plans. Leaf plans are kind of the end product of what we call this. So if you're dealing with a family that might have multiple generations or multiple branches, you'll be able to actually interconnect those in a way that you'll be able to see generational data or shared data across branches, different things like that. Right now, they're kind of pretty isolated. You could build a family as big as you want to in a single leaf plan, but it's a pretty isolated thing. That'll
Okay.
be done by the end of the year. We're working on, there's little stuff that kind of happens constantly. So in our industry, I'd say one of the things I fear greatly that people are not paying enough attention to is this new thing coming on the pike January 1st called the Corporate Transparency Act, which a
Uh-huh.
lot of people are not paying attention to or not familiar with. We're adjusting part of the template in Leaf Planner to make sure that you can track which family entities are subject to reporting under the CTA. So there's
Okay.
little things like that that are just, again, workflow management that'll just help families in this kind of environment. Integrations for us is going to be a really big deal. So whether that's as simple as, Plaid to be able to bring in financial accounts, or whether that's as sophisticated as, again, in our industry, the data aggregators are people like Adapar and Black Diamond and Tamarack and Intact on the GL side. So those integrations with those systems that families of wealth are using in one way or the other, and they want some kind of integration and efficiency for that. Those will be coming kind of early next year. So lots of exciting things, I think.
Great, great. So we've been working together for over a year now,
Yeah.
and I've always been impressed by your expertise and also your vision. So I have to ask, what's next for Leaf Planner?
Other than I think that, product growth, certainly the product growth and I'm out really kind of evangelizing. As you can see, obviously I'm not a 25-year-old entrepreneur who jumped into this, right? I'm a 61-year-old former lawyer, family office executive who said, I see a need in this industry. And
Right.
so I think that, first of all, gives us a different perspective on what we're doing and why we're doing it, how we're doing it. And it also, for me, gives me an opportunity to use, I don't mean this too egotistically, because that's not me, but like to use my reputation and my history in the industry to be evangelizing about why this is so important, and that, the industry has done some great things over the last, again, 2 or 3 decades, but this is one that I think people have got to really focus on the importance. You can pick up the paper, certainly the Wall Street Journal, maybe the New York Times, right? You can pick these papers up once a month. You're going to see some kind of article about whatever the number is, the $65 trillion wealth transfer that's happening from the baby boomer generation. Unfortunately, I'm at the tail end of that, so you can call me a boomer, to the to the next generation, and the idea of how that generation is going to be prepared for that wealth transfer. Leaf Planner is providing a little piece of that, right? There's obviously the advisors are important and all these other things. And then on the advisory side, I'd say it's really important because in that same wealth transfer, one of the big issues is that typically the data shows that the next generation does not keep their parents' advisors. And so if you're an advisor, why wouldn't you want to be establishing a better relationship with that rising generation, who, by
Sure.
the way, could be in their 50s, right? I mean, this isn't like, we're not talking about teenagers necessarily. They can
Right.
be, full adults. But why wouldn't you want to be doing a better job of establishing that relationship so that you keep those assets as an advisor when those assets transfer? And Leaf Planner is really, a piece of that. And I'm frankly just evangelizing anywhere I can about how important this is, because I lived it, right? And I look back, Zach, and I'd say, if I adore my father. I mean, I love him to death. I think he's the smartest man I've ever met in my life. I'm so proud of what I've done over my career, partly as a result of who he was and what he was, and that
Yeah.
it's led me to this. So I have no complaints whatsoever. But I got to tell you, if I really sat back and said, if you could go back 20 plus years and say to my dad before he died, Josh is going to be doing this for the next 20 years, I gotta tell you, I don't think he'd be that happy,
Right.
right? And so I think this notion of being out and helping families avoid this mistake that not a mistake, I don't like that, but this thing that I had to live. And granted, our situation was wildly complicated, but it rhymes enough with other people
Hmm.
that if we can help people avoid that, that's to me what this company is all about.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, it comes at a very difficult time too, right? So,
Yes.
um, so to really to ease
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Comes at a difficult time. And you alluded to it earlier. You said, if I don't do it, it's going to fall on my wife and kids. Right. And and one of the things, like, I can't quantify this, so I feel like I'm always hesitant to say something about it, but I'll say it this way. You could spend 10 hours now and your wife and kids could spend 100 hours later, right? I mean, I don't know what that multiple is, but there's a huge multiple. And as you just said, it comes at the worst possible time, right? You want your family to be able to grieve or do whatever it is that, or maybe celebrate, who knows, but whatever they're going to do, you want them to be able to do, right? And this notion of we get tied up into these things. And I gave up an entire career to be able to do this, right? And my
Right.
family could afford to hire me to go do it. That's pretty unusual in and of itself.
Yeah,
Uh,
a lot of people don't have that luxury, right?
right, right. So yeah. Anyway,
Well, this has been a great chat. Thank you for joining us.
thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach. Well, thank you guys for your partnership with us. We're really excited about it, and thanks for letting me share there a little bit more about the story.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks you, Josh, and thanks everyone for watching.